Hi there, welcome to the RevOps show. Yes, we are back to the grind after being in Thanksgiving food comas for a couple more weeks as this year comes to an end. But no worries, the show will still be coming out every single week on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. leading up to the holiday. So today's episode is fun and a little different as we welcome our Director of Product and Development, Drew Davidoff, to the show. He will be discussing his take and thoughts on the cookieless future and how this can tie into RevOps and how RevOps can be helping to combat cookies going away. So with that, welcome Drew, and let's get on into the show.
I don't know what to say.
What do you mean? You should
Jess!
Doug!
Drew?
What's going on here? This isn't a guest. This isn't have a guest. This isn't a we have guest show.
We do now. We've had guests on before. We just haven't both been on when we've had guests on.
Okay. So who's with us today? Who's with us today, Jess?
We have Drew with us, Doug.
Drew, he looks familiar, but Drew who?
Drew Davidoff, the one and the only.
We have two Davidoffs on one show.
I must be a glutton for punishment late on a Friday, man. Two Davidoffs for a full
Why do you do
hour.
this to yourself?
Don't know.
I don't think this is a smart idea, Jeff.
Having to deal with both of you for the entire podcast episode, I agree.
So Drew, why don't you introduce yourself to all our RevOps peeps?
To my mom.
To Jess's mom, our number one fan, and number one RevOps show on Spotify.
Oh hell!
I say we take over TikTok. I say we become the number one RevOps show on TikTok.
I may quit if we attempt to do that.
Would that make us the number one RevOps show in China?
It might.
I think it would.
It might.
Drew, introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone. I'm Drew Davidoff. I am Lyft's Director of Product and Development, and as Jess would, I'm sure, like me to say, you are not seeing double. I am Doug's son. Been working with Lyft for a while now, and I'm honored to be joining the RevOps show, to be gracing it with my presence.
Honored? Oh my God!
Honored.
Hopefully, first time, hopefully many.
Already. All
off
right.
to a good and focused start, just like I like it.
What did you expect?
I don't even know where to start.
You don't know where to start from the beginning, Doug.
I don't even know where to go. Should we talk about Disney?
I mean, I'm happy to talk about Disney for an entire podcast. You know that.
Have you booked your next Disney trip?
We have.
How come you didn't tell me about this?
We're going to the land. We're going to California. I'm excited.
Okay, let me see if I can get this right. Come and
Mixing
listen to my story about a chief of staff named Jess.
Oh, wow.
Poor San Antonian. But she did a lot of shit with databases.
Wow.
Then one day,
Poetry.
she was looking for a Disney
A
experience.
mouse. Okay. Mouse would have been better.
And so she loaded up a truck and moved to Beverly.
Anaheim, but sure.
Pretty close.
Pretty fairly, yeah.
So when are you
Close
going?
enough. October of next year. It's going to be a birthday celebration for me.
Is next year a big year?
Next year's a big year. We don't need to talk about it.
Wow.
I know.
So it's the big 3-0, right?
And thank you and bless you for saying that. Yes, the big 3-0.
I'm staying as far away from this one as possible.
October, like what? So October 24th, right?
I think it's the week before my birthday is when we have it planned. So I'll actually be there on your birthday.
For my birthday.
For your birthday. For your and Drew's birthday.
So you're deserting me on my birthday.
I might be. That's a vacation for you. You're welcome. Happy birthday, Doug.
I'm invited?
You are invited. Come on, let's go.
Are you going to catch a Mighty Ducks game?
Possibly.
I don't think you even know who the Mighty Ducks are.
How dare you, sir? I am right in that age pocket to be a Mighty Ducks fan.
No. I know that you probably know who the Mighty Ducks who played on the pond in Minnesota are.
Yes.
I'm talking about the actual Mighty Ducks national hockey league.
I'm also familiar with them as well. But yes, because of the movies. That's how I know who they are.
Quack. And so when the Ducks get mad, what do they do?
Quack. Okay, Doug.
What are we talking
as much as I'd like to talk about Disney,
you want to talk about the Rangers?
Today, I do not want to talk about the Rangers.
You don't want to talk about the New York Rangers?
I don't want to talk about the New York Rangers. I don't want to talk about the Texas Rangers. They keep breaking my heart. We'll see how it pans out. All right. Today I want to talk about cookies.
Me want cookie.
Right on cue. Right on cue.
What do you want to talk about?
Cookies.
Me want cookie.
We'll just do this for an hour. It's already old, Drew. It was old months ago. The topic today is cookieless future.
Cookie! Nom, nom, nom. Oh, nom, 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 nom.
I'm still
waiting for it. I was waiting for it. I'm glad that you're entertained, Drew.
Alrighty, where are we starting?
So let's start with what are cookies?
Wait, let me ask you a question first.
Okay.
What do you think the meaning behind Big Bird really is?
Oh, good God. I don't even know what that question is.
We're talking about Cookie Monster, Sesame Street. Isn't that what today is?
Yes. Not about Sesame Street.
You said we're talking about
cookies. Cookieless future.
Right, I thought you were talking about getting rid of Cookie Monster.
Drew.
I would never get rid of Cookie Monster.
Hold on. Did I prepare on the wrong topic?
I think you did.
I think you may have.
Okay.
I think somehow we'll be able to get there, though.
Alrighty, I got it. Okay. All right. Let me listen.
God. Drew, what are cookies and why do they matter?
So cookies are snippets of code, and they come in one of two varieties. They either track what users are doing on your website, or they track what users are doing outside of your website, behave like the stuff that they're doing, actions that they're taking.
And so they're all going away?
But not all of them. Just the latter kind is what we're up in arms about, or I guess lots of people are up in arms about here, freaking out that we're losing. These ones are called third-party cookies, whereas the first is called first-party cookies.
I'm curious about something, though. It has nothing to do with this topic, but it is, I think, a very important question. There are first-party cookies. There are third-party cookies. Mm-hmm. Are there second-party cookies?
I don't think so.
Isn't that weird?
That is weird.
So here's what's messed up about me is I had that exact same thought as I was researching this topic. Spent way too much time with you, Doug.
Isn't that weird?
What is a second party?
So how are cookies created? So like we have cookies on our website, but we haven't created any cookies. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jess. I've eaten some cookies in my time.
Same.
I maybe have even baked some cookies, but I sure as heck haven't put them on our website.
But our website has cookies.
So where do they come from?
A lot of times you're using other services and things on your website. You have tech, like chat, like you put a chatbot on your website. You have analytics, Google Analytics on your website. You have the HubSpot tracking code on your website. All of these things are kind of cookies.
But what if you don't have
makes it a
HubSpot website? Why would you have HubSpot tracking code? I'm just kidding. I'm trying to be difficult.
Welcome, Drew.
Apple doesn't fall far, though. So I'm sure I'll throw it back.
So am I right that Like there are a lot of people, a lot of times cookies get put on your website that you didn't even put on your website.
Yeah, I mean, you do insofar as like you use stuff to make your website work, and you need data to enable that stuff. Like if you want to give someone access to make sure someone has access and personalization on your website to certain assets, like a cookie is how you recognize who that person is. But that doesn't mean that um, that you're
Are
you
there
had like you didn't necessarily make that happen. That happens as a result of the way you set your website up.
so actually I think I asked the question the wrong way. So when we set up and configure our website, all those snippets of code that we put on, all those little snippets that give us Google Analytics, and I'm sure some people that are listening, you guys already know this. We'll have in the show notes the time point that if you want to skip the intro to cookies, you can do that. But I do think a lot of times cookies are so obvious that we skip these things, and we don't necessarily know what they are. But so there's all the stuff that I put on that all capture maybe what the last conversation was. It's this record in your CRM, all those different things so that Google Analytics can report our source tracking, all those other stuff. Aren't there cookies or what is it that if they're not cookies, what are they that are on the visitor's side that they carry with them? And, those are things that I don't even know if this is still a company. This is how long it's been since that I've been in the depths of implementing marketing stuff. But like DoubleClick, like all the advertising networks that are building up that's coming from the user side, right?
Right. So most of the cookies that are in use are these first party cookies. That's what we've talked about, the stuff that's on your website. These third party cookies, so this is where the third party comes in, is you're no longer on the place that the cookie lives. You're not that code is now in your browser.
In the visitor's browser.
Yes, in the visitor's browser as a user. So it is keeping track of outside of wherever that user got the cookie from. It's tracking their behavior, it's tracking their information, and a lot of times it's doing this without their knowledge.
So a lot of times it's doing it without the user's knowledge.
Without the user's knowledge, yeah.
And so when we say cookies are going away, third-party cookies are going away, is that an accurate statement, or is it that Google is no longer supporting third-party cookies?
It's actually an inaccurate statement. Third-party cookies have already gone away. Safari and Firefox don't have third-party cookies anymore. Firefox was, I want to say, Firefox was 2019 and Safari was 2020 when they sunsetted third-party cookies. So
now, when you say they sunsetted third-party cookies, does that mean they just no longer support third-party cookies? Because again, they're not the ones putting the cookie on. They no longer
support. They don't. So their products, their browsers,
right, don't support it.
No longer store that snippet of code that tracks your behavior
from site to site to site,
from site to site to site, and outside.
But Google still does.
But Chrome still does. And Chrome has a 65% market share of browsers right now, and the next closest is Safari with about 20%.
So I know that you're very cynical about people being upset that this is going away. What are people losing?
So what you lose is a lot of that automatic profile building.
What does that mean?
The lift of aggregating all of the information about the way a specific contact in your database acts is getting more difficult.
So Drew, can you give a specific example of what you're talking about when you say building profile data, like what you're doing?
So with like right now, your PPC tool can, through a cookie on your website, if a user's in a Chrome browser, keep track of what someone is searching in Google, not necessarily on your website. And they can tie that back to that user's profile in your database.
But
so
but I hear that being said, and you're not the only person that I've heard say that, but I don't actually have access to that. Like I don't have anywhere in my CRM currently or anywhere, even if I'm using WordStream, I can't see what is Jess's profile, right?
That's totally fair.
It's that when I'm doing programmatic advertising, when I want to do, when I want an audience based upon behaviors that occurred off my website, it's not that I'm losing it. It's that my application no longer can leverage that information because it's not being sorted anymore. So DoubleClick loses the ability to learn to keep track of every website that I've been on in the last 3 years.
So I would ask you, what's the difference? Because what you lose is DoubleClick's ability to, with the high fidelity level of precision that you've come to expect, aggregate that profile and target those people.
And I would question how precise and accurate, and I mean
and I would imagine it's only going to get worse.
Well, so does that mean programmatic PPC goes away?
I don't think it goes away, but it gets more difficult. It gets less, the quality drops, and it starts to get more centralized to organizations that have massive first-party data sets. Like, I think you see your DoubleClicks and your word streams start to fall off in favor of people using Google's products and their ads services support.
But if I use WordStream, aren't I actually using? By the way, DoubleClick's owned by Google, so they'll probably be fine.
Yeah, there you go.
But if I'm using WordStream, that I'm still using Google's product because WordStream is managing my AdWords.
You're using Google's products, but you're using WordStream's algorithm and WordStream's data.
Okay. So why are they doing this?
It's a privacy measure. It's a user privacy measure, and you can choose to believe that's because these companies want to protect privacy, or if it's just a response to GDPR out of the European Union. It's probably the cynic in me says the latter, but
isn't that the same thing though?
I guess.
Well, I think what Drew is saying, in the first instance, they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart for privacy of their users, or they're doing it because they're being forced to by GDPR.
Right.
But yes, it's the same thing.
So if we're talking about if third-party data, which is basically what we're talking about, right? I mean, if I say third-party data and third-party cookies, is that the same thing or is that different?
I mean, it's a little different because you can still get you can still buy lists and stuff. Like, that's third-party data.
So if third-party cookies, which is the behavior of people on other people's websites, is going away, how does Google still have it? How does Google enable me to leverage Jess's behavior on Winning by Design's website?
Because no one's, as much as GDPR is the driving force behind this, there really isn't much of a force of accountability for them that I can see. No one's holding them accountable to it. They recently pushed the date out to mid-2024. So now they're not going to do it until mid-2024. So I wonder the same thing. I can't think of anything other than if there are fines, they're happy to pay them and do it on their time, because that's what they're doing. They're just doing it on their time. There really isn't all that much tangibly that I have seen or found that, because clearly, technically, it's doable. Like I said, Safari and Firefox did it years ago. It's a question of, I think, and this is where I get kind of cynical with Google, is it's a question of prioritization. It's a question of who's holding them accountable.
Well, I think there's fair. I mean, there is definitely a tremendous amount of downstream impact that even if in the long term this is positive, and I don't know if it is or not. In the short term, legitimately, beyond just Google, it has significant consequences. So
what are those consequences?
Yeah.
We've talked before, Jess, that if you look at venture funding, according to some research, 40 to 60% of every dollar that goes to funding Series A, B, C, et cetera, 40 to 60 cents of each dollar goes to Google or Facebook for advertising. And what are those companies using? They're using some tool that is leveraging that data. So so their business model or their go-to-market model is built on that. It's so like all of a sudden we're not just gonna shut the blinds. We're gonna take the window and turn it into a slab of concrete, right? So you have that. You have a number of companies that are in the business of supporting that. You've got agencies that advise on this. There's a look. I can make an argument, and I don't like third-party cookies. I think I don't know. I don't know if I like. It's one of those things. I like cookies when they help me, but I think that they should only be able to be used for the things that help me. So, like, I shouldn't have to re-enter my name, but anything else they shouldn't know. It's one of the reasons why I use Apple's login, because I get the benefit of the cookie, but they have no idea who I am, so they can't actually.
Yeah.
See, Dakota
clearly hates cookies,
but
too.
She gets it.
So I figure where was I going on this? So like
you said if it benefits you, you're fine with it. That's why you use Apple's logging.
Right. No, but it was actually the statement before that where I was so. I remember what I was going to say. So for all those things that and you have spend. I'll share this with you. I'm going to go to, if we think paid advertising is controversial, if we think third-party cookies are controversial, I'm going to go to a place that makes both of those look like the toddler's pool.
Great.
And I'm going to talk about term limits.
You didn't even go kiddie pool. He went toddler's pool.
Term limits.
In politics, in government. Term limits. Right?
Oh,
and everybody
Lord.
wants term limits, right?
Okay.
Everyone's saying we need term limits, right?
Yeah.
And why do we want term limits? Well, we want term limits because we want new people coming into government. We want, more voice of the people.
Young blood.
Except for the fact that if you look at just about every piece of research done on this, what you'll find out is if term limits actually became a thing, the institutional inertia of power in Washington and other governments would sustain, and it would actually be worse because the people that would control the agenda and control the machinery wouldn't be the people that are elected. They'd be the people who were staffed. Because what you really have to look at is what's the staff turnover. And if you look at what's the cost of an election and the cost of all those things, what you begin to find is there's a whole bunch of second, third, fourth order effects that become far more complicated. By the way, of all the things that I've seen that I think would have some impact, though it would be complicated, I am moving more and more towards being positive for ranked choice voting. But let's go back to cookies. So if we get rid of cookies, if we get rid of third-party cookies, who are the biggest beneficiaries of that? And who are the people that are actually hurt the most?
Google.
Not
Google.
Well, no. I'm not talking about the advertising network. I'm not talking about the advertiser.
Okay.
I'm talking about the user. I'm talking about the user. Which user? Yeah. Which users? Which people who are using the big companies are benefit and the small companies are penalized.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
So here's one nice thing about third-party cookies and the ability to get data into the hands of people who don't know who you are. Right. I don't have to wait for Muhammad to find the mountain. I can bring the mountain to Muhammad. So if I'm a startup and I'm investing a lot of money in a product and I need to build an audience fast, how am I going to do that?
PPC.
Right. And are you not going to be able to do that going forward? No, you're not going to be able to do that. But the price for it's going to go up.
It's not going to be nearly as effective.
It is interesting because when Apple turned on their whole thing that you can turn off, you don't know about this, Jess, you're on Android, that you can block applications from getting data from what you're doing with other applications. It had a tremendous impact directly on Facebook. But if you look over the last 2 years, it's actually like the loss of effectiveness has been made up. So like I do think those things are gonna get figured out. But I think to not acknowledge that there is a trade-off and there are some issues around there, and to understand what are the second and third order effects. Like, I mean, I'll say the same thing about generative AI. Everyone's like, it's going to be an equalizer. No, it's not. It's going to be a magnifier. The bigger players are going to win. It's going to play to the strengths of the bigger players. You know, what do the big players want? Big players want a lot of noise. They win with a lot of noise.
Yep.
So let's get into. I know, Jess, you're the one who's supposed to be asking the questions, but
It's okay.
so what do we do about it? And more importantly, what's the role of RevOps in it?
So, what do we do about it? You make it as easy to collect data as possible through your sales marketing.
What does that mean?
Motions. So, inbound's coming back. I guess it never went away, but like forms matter more. The way you intake data, the way you make use of your chatbot to intake data and build your profiles, you will need to be more intentional if you want to utilize and leverage that kind of information.
So you're saying gate your content.
Something robust managing your
You're
website.
saying,
I'm not saying gate your content. I'm saying
what is
have data collection motions. Make data collection a part of your sales marketing success process.
So how would you do that if it wasn't gating your content?
I mean, another way to do it is impart upon your sales reps to be filling profiles, adding data information to records. Ask your existing database or find ways to get information from your existing database about their behaviors. I'm not saying gate your content. I'm saying it's not necessary, but it's not a bad thing to have gated content.
So you said ask your database? What do you ask your database?
Ask your database. I mean,
why are you so messy? That's what I ask my database every day.
What do you people do? Build out your profile, build out your personas. Think hard about what your people do.
Database in the sky. Which customer is ready to buy? Oh, that was good.
That was awesome.
As we said, he's a poet.
I mean, honestly, it's database in the sky. What kind of customer might be ready to buy? Experiment and document the results of your experiments for testing the way that your users behave. The lift is more on you than it is automatic. It is moving more to be on you than it is moving away from being automatic for generating these kinds of profiles that you can personalize experience.
But what if you're automatic for the people?
Doug, what do you think the approach should be? How should you? Yeah.
Just
how does this change things? I do.
So actually, you know whose advantage I think this plays to?
Other than Google?
Yes, other than Google. I think it plays to the advantage of 56-year-olds.
What does that mean?
It's a specific number.
Who do we know that's 56? No one I know. No one I know.
Leader.
No one I know. Because we actually had to learn how to grow business before.
Me want cookie.
Oh, good God.
The need for understanding context is coming back.
So do you know what advertising is?
I mean, I know what advertising is, but I don't know where you're going with this. What is advertising?
It's the tax that you have to pay for being boring. It's the tax that you have to pay for being irrelevant.
You said advertising, not advertising expense.
No, that's what advertising is. Advertising is the tax you pay.
Okay.
For being boring or irrelevant.
What does that mean?
So,
what does that mean?
Everyone is praying to the altar of the 3%, right? Who's the where's the market that's looking to buy? What post intent data, and outside of the fact that you've got two fundamental problems with it. One is most of it's bullshit, and the other is what it's doing. What's happening, and it's ultimately could be what's responsible for destroying mankind, personkind, is we're auto tuning people. We're not actually trying to be predictive. We're trying to manipulate, right? So the algorithms don't try to predict what you're likely to do.
Take out variance.
The algorithms work to put things in front of you so that you behave in patterns that are predictable, that you don't even realize that that's why you're doing it. And that's why everyone says, huh? I don't understand. Why is everyone getting so mad? You know, the fundamental problem with data is that data tells you what happened. It doesn't tell you what's going to happen. And data mixed with automation makes you efficient, but also makes you inflexible.
It certainly doesn't make
by
you
the way,
stand
you know,
out.
Jim Collins, well, it can make you stand out. Again, it's a question of, are you using data for the answer or are you using data for the question? You know, Jim Collins' first book, I love his book, Good to Great. I love the title of it, Good to Great. I hated the title of his first book, Built to Last. You know what? Some companies aren't built to last. You know what? BlackBerry was not built to last, nor should it have been. BlackBerry solved a problem, solved it excellently, made a shit ton of money. And the only thing that they did that I think was felony stupid was they spent a whole bunch of that money that they made in pursuit of being something that they weren't. Right? What would have made a lot more sense is if BlackBerry had just said, "Hey, you know what? Michael Caine. They should have followed the steps. You know what Michael Caine did 3 days ago? He announced his retirement.
Retired from acting.
And if you still like Michael Caine, you can watch his movies and his TV shows still, right? But it was time for him to say goodbye. So it's back to, what is the problem that you solve? What is it that you do that's relevant? Here's my question. How are you relevant before somebody needs what you do? Now, what's not going away is search. What's not going away is like if I'm selling candy bars, or if I've created a protein bar that is that feels and tastes like a candy bar, but actually has protein or something, I can still be smart in that advertising space because I don't need your behaviors on other websites. Because, by the way, I probably don't go on to like 17 web. I don't put like an RFP out for my, I'm going to have a snack this afternoon.
No.
I'm going to issue an RFP. Right. So it really is going to go back to, here's the question. Are you looking to create demand? Are you generating demand, or are you fulfilling demand? What is the game that you're playing? And then here's the other thing. You need to embrace your acquisition ecosystem.
What do you mean by that?
So the favorite question that I've ever asked, and it was really when the internet was, this would have been in the mid-aughts. So the internet was a thing, but it wasn't what it is today. And I said to somebody who had been a successful business executive, was probably about 6-7 years into the business that they were running. And I said, look, let me ask you a question. If you were a great salesperson and a dystopian event happened that caused you to lose and forget everything that you have with the exception of one thing, and you needed to rebuild your business, what's the one thing that you wouldn't want to forget? And the answer was, who are the people that solve complementary problems for the people that I solve problems for, right? Because the fastest way for me to grow my business, the fastest way for me to grow my relevance is to be relevant and then find the people that my relevance helps their relevance. So like, why did I jump on the HubSpot bandwagon? Why did I write lots of blog posts for the HubSpot blog? Because HubSpot solved problems for companies that we solved problems for long before we became long before we became one of the top HubSpot implementers. It was what we used to call centers of influence, right? So, and by the way, with all these conversations about, it drives me crazy, product-led growth, partner-led growth, community-led growth. I think, and I think it's actually going to bring back an idea that we started to work on. And actually Mark Killens probably presents it the best way, which is, rather than asking somebody to fill out a form every time they want something of value from you, why don't you ask them to fill out one form and then they can have access to everything of value? So how do you build your own micro community? And I want to come up with a word other than community, because I think community has, become too much of a buzzword, but how do we make ourselves relevant to the people that we're trying to sell to? One of the great strategies very early in my sales career, it was a little bit more of a relationship business back then, was be an advocate for your customers, right? So sometimes the best way to get the relationship with them wasn't to help them directly, but to advocate for an issue that was really important to them, right? And so again, there's a lot of different ways to go about doing what you're doing, and I think that what you need to do is you've got to make a decision. Are you going to be able to play a volume game, or are you not going to be able to play a volume game? And if you're not going to be able to play a volume game, then don't play a volume game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, it's easy to get lost in. It's easy to find yourself trying to add tactics that where you see is volume, right? It's really easy because, by the way, that's the dominant game. But how are you thinking about promotion and distribution? How are you promoting your content?
Yeah.
Where are you promoting your content? I think, how do you build your content network? I mean, I know one of the things that I want us to be doing in 2024 is I want us to begin to build. Actually, I've been morphing ideas. Something just came together. So we have our Smart Growth Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
I think that next year, I want to make the Smart Growth Roundup, whatever it might be, rather than our newsletter, for lack of a better word. What if there were 3, 4, 5, 6 other companies that served similar, that we had lots of alignment in TAM, approach things from different areas. In today's world, surely there's some overlap. But rather than it being just our content, right? And so,
Right.
like, I'd love to have a human resources company, a human resources advisory for mid-market companies that becomes a part and parcel to what we're doing. A compensation company, like there's 100 different things that you can do, right? To begin to say, how do we serve and be relevant to our customers, to our markets better? And then the other element is how do you turn the tables on the long game? I remember, I know I'm rambling here, but I remember when Ryan worked here, and Ryan came from the funded world, right? And so he had money. We did not. But I told Ryan, I said, Ryan, we actually have an advantage here because we have time, right?
Yeah.
The people who raised money, they don't have time, right? So I said, look, they need to get it done this month. I need to get it done this year. So I don't need to hit you right now. I don't need 30-day disposition. I don't need to make 10,000 calls. I need to be relevant and then let time take care of itself. Be relevant, be relevant, be relevant, be relevant. Let time take care of itself, right? So I think you really have to define your game, understand what the rules are. Frankly, I don't think the third-party cookie game ever played to your advantage. It just enabled you to fool yourself into it.
So does this just solidify why RevOps is so important to your organization? Because if you think that like third-party cookies is a magic wand, having this behavioral data as a magic wand, your approach hasn't been right all along, and so this is just putting a magnifying glass to that.
The sound of is this just the fait accompli for why RevOps is so important? No, because one of the reasons why I asked some of the questions that I asked earlier, because frankly, third-party cookies have never meant that much to us anyway. So I'm not personally. I was aware of them much more when I was involved in more of the day-to-day implementation because I had to be. I think that what RevOps, because do you need RevOps to make this adjustment? No, you don't.
Okay.
It's funny because I was talking with Fiona and Hannah today on some content topics, and we were talking about insider's view and outsider's view, and so I think that if you look at the purpose of RevOps as being a horizontal discipline, a horizontal function, whereas your sales function, marketing function, and service success functions are vertical functions. By the way, you know what another word for a vertical function is? Silo. Right. That's why silos are not bad. Yeah. Silos are necessary, right? You need silos and you need to work across silos. And so like if you're in the sales vertical, you're optimizing sales. If you're in the marketing vertical, you're optimizing marketing. right? So there's nothing inherently wrong. As a matter of fact, the natural endpoint for marketing is to fall into one of two camps on the extreme, to either optimize for brand for some big picture reason, or to optimize for leads. And that's why you see the battle between, is marketing about leads or is marketing about brand? And the answer is yes and no about all of it. What happens is, leads are really important. It also is what is a lead. So we also tend to miss that, we think of lead as new lead. So again, a lot of the metrics that we use value recency disproportionately, right? So I think that there's I think it plays to the strengths of a strong RevOps function, right? So RevOps needs to look at the world. I think the reason that we went to RevOps before anyone else did, that we found ourselves really comfortable in the RevOps world, is easily 5 years before RevOps was used. I remember having a conversation with a group of people that were asking about, well, how do you introduce sales CRM to marketing, to a marketing person? And I said, well, the interesting thing is I've never had that problem because I've never had a marketing conversation. I've never had a sales conversation. I've never had a service conversation. But I've never seen a marketing problem, a sales problem, or a service problem. I've only seen revenue problems. Right. And so if you're looking at it from that standpoint, I think it plays to their advantage. Now, I also think that it's really crucially important to emphasize that being relevant is beyond the role of sales, marketing, success, and RevOps. That is a company commitment, right? That is strategic, right? The company needs to be committed to that. And then I think from looking across the function, aligning vectors, et cetera. So I think it amplifies RevOps. I think it plays to a RevOps advantage. Because, we talked about the 3 zones of execution, and this is interesting. I think it's the fait accompli to zone 2, right?
Tell me more.
If you look at small mid-market companies, what you see is they're stuck in one of two or two vortexes. They're stuck in the right now. They're stuck in the big picture, long-term vision.
Yeah.
Right. And the difficulty is they don't have the discipline. And I don't mean the discipline as in the will. I mean, they don't have the function. They don't have the function for zone 2. Right. So you've got one group that thinks about now, the next 90 days. You've got another group that thinks about the future, which is a year or longer. And there's nobody who thinks about 3 months to a year. And the reason is because no one has the metrics for 3 months to a year. No one has what I would actually say is 3 months to 18 months. I think zone 2 actually overlaps transformation zone.
Right. You and I have talked about that before. Yep.
I've actually fallen back to saying something that I used to say all the time. And this would have been 2000. No, this would have been 1994. This goes back 30 years, right? I mean, I used to always talk about the fact, look, it takes 12 to 18 months for a sales or marketing initiative to really generate impact. It takes 12 to 18 months. It takes 12 to 18 months, right? So the difficulty is if I'm marketing, I've got to generate leads. I've got to generate visits. I got to generate this. And the last thing I can't take that away. Like, okay, hey, everybody, you don't have to generate leads, right?
Right.
Whatever other metric comes in, so there's just what large enterprises have is groups. It's the proverbial work in the business, work on the business, right? If I'm, there's a whole group of people there's tens to hundreds of people at HubSpot that are responsible for working on things that aren't supposed to happen right now.
Right.
And so I think that RevOps is, should be bringing that perspective and should be helping to manage. Jess, there's only 2 places where I get myself into trouble: short term or the long term. Right. Right.
I can attest to that.
So balancing that out, I think is
all right. Yep.
Cookie.
Couple of.
I do have
you.
one regret. I meant to have downloaded one other soundbite.
Oh. I'm so disappointed.
I meant to download it. I meant to have had handy the Sesame Street theme.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, maybe next time. So a couple of key takeaways. Cookies are not completely going away. Third-party cookies are going away, so cookieless is not necessarily an
So
accurate
you're saying
statement.
Cookie Monster is safe?
Cookie Monster is safe, Doug.
Hold on. What you're
Yes.
saying? Hold on. There's
So
actually
is
a
Big
problem
Bird.
here because what you're saying is
Okay.
Cookie Monster is safe, but he needs to have his own cookies.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
But
That's what I'm saying.
But Cookie Monster
100%.
eats all of the cookies he has, so he can only
I know.
survive by taking other people's cookies.
This is a perfect picture into what I deal with on a daily basis. This right here is
Like they said, Cookie
a
Monster.
Once
beautiful
again, I would say,
example of
Jess,
that.
I think rather than saying something along the lines of what you just said, you should have said, "This is the
This is what I have
this
the
is the
opportunity
miracle
to,
that I get to live with
get
every day
to."
because despite this, somehow we still get stuff done."
Yeah, we do. We do. We have a good time doing it. So at least there's that. This is going to be a great. This is going to be an equalizer, a lot like what we talked about with AI. So this is going to be an equalizer for businesses.
Sorry, I want to pause there, because it's not going to be an
individuals.
equalizer.
Yep.
This plays to the advantage. This plays to the
It's not gonna
advantage
be
of the
an
big
equal-
boys or girls. Like, and here's
Okay.
the thing.
All
Here's
right.
the thing. Guess what? Everything that happens in this world plays to the advantage of the big players, right? That's right.
Well, exactly.
So the
Yeah,
question
okay.
is, how do you change the game you're playing to
Okay.
as Sun Tzu would say, turn thy enemy's strengths into their weaknesses, or something like that.
Yep.
That's your copy, by the way.
And then last but not least, advertising is the tax you pay for being
Irrelevant.
boring or
Irrelevant.
obsolete. Particularly enjoyed that. And irrelevant. Boring or irrelevant.
Hey, Jess.
And on that
Just
note,
remember.
yeah, Doug.
Remember, just say no to shitty RevOps.
Till next time.
That's a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. Thank you so much, Drew, for coming onto the show and talking about the cookieless future. As a marketer myself, I really enjoyed the point of view from this episode that there are still ways to do what you want to do and reach the people you want to reach. It's just going to look a little bit different, and you have to hone in on your skill a little bit more. When change happens, rather than being afraid of it, embrace it. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to go subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to listen to us. We would be over the moon if you left us a review and shared the episode. If you have any questions you would like to ask Doug or Jess or Drew about the cookieless future, email me at hannah@liftenablement.com or hit us up on X @demandcreator or LinkedIn @liftenablement. And until next time, just say no to shitty RevOps.